Jerusalem. From it was subdued under Babylon, Medo-Persia, Greece, Rome, followed by the Byzantine period, early Muslim period, the Crusader period, the Mamluk period, the Ottoman Empire. Then the British Mandate took it over until it was divided. Today, Jerusalem is a city of many Abrahamic religions, with an Armenian quarter, a Muslim quarter, a Jewish quarter, and a Christian quarter. The city isn't Jewish today, but a bit-by-bit story of how the Bible followers divided over time and chose different directions. And perhaps it has not happened by chance. In the 16th century, the Ottoman Suleiman the Magnificent decided to fully rebuild the city walls of Jerusalem, and these are the walls that exist today. But just like with the people in the city, also the walls of Jerusalem show the different periods, as the wall contains rocks from the First and Second Temple period and also the Ottoman Restoration. Suleiman also wondered what to do with a huge cave extending under the city and was worried for the city's safety. Therefore, he sealed and hid it in 1540. It took over 300 years before the cave was made known again. From our time, let's travel back in time over 2,600 years. Before the Babylonian army destroyed the temple in Jerusalem back in 586 to 88, the Ark of the Covenant, along with the candlestick, altar of incense, and table of showbread, the original items that was built at Sinai, was hidden. The only Jewish writings on its destiny was written many years later. The book of the Maccabees said the ark was taken to Mount Nebo, or to some readers, a mountain Moses could see from Mount Nebo. The book of Baruch claimed the earth swallowed the ark in Jerusalem to be hidden there until God would bring it forth again in the end times. Both these sources say Jeremiah was there when the ark was hidden. And it came to pass on the morrow that, lo, the army of the Chaldees surrounded the city, to place in it what the Lord the Most High has commanded me. And I saw him descend into the Holy of Holies, and take from there the veil, and holy ark, and the mercy seat, and the 2 tables, and the holy raiment of the priests, and the altar of incense. Earth, 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 hear the word of the mighty God, and receive what I commit to you, and guard them until the last time, so that when you are ordered, you may restore them. And the earth opened its mouth and swallowed them up. When God left the cherubim over the ark and the temple a few years before the temple destruction, he had said he would come back and renew his law in the hearts of his people. You see, they had at this time rejected his law in order to follow pagan festivals, gods, and ways of worship, and they mixed the temple of God with human-invented idols. In addition, these people claimed to represent God as well as their pagan gods at the same time. They hadn't cared for the weak amongst them, or the fatherless, or the widows, and God also especially rebuked them for rejecting his Sabbath. He promised if they just keep his Sabbath, he would bless them and make them prosper. But he also said that Jerusalem would not be destroyed if they respect this commandment. And it shall come to pass, if ye diligently hearken unto me, says the Lord, to bring in no burden through the gates of this city on the Sabbath day, but hallow the Sabbath day, to do no work therein, then shall there enter into the gates of this city kings and princes sitting upon the throne of David, riding in chariots and on horses, they and their princes, the men of Judah and the inhabitants of Jerusalem, and this city shall remain forever. And he said, And hallow my Sabbaths, and they shall be a sign between me and you, that ye may know that I am the Lord your God. But they rejected his offer and his sign, and so he allowed Jerusalem to be conquered by the very power whose laws and religion they followed. God had promised if they keep the Sabbath, they could keep their rule over their own kingdom. But they rejected God, and from this time on, the corrupted religious beasts started to rule over and subdue God's people. Rejecting God's sign of authority placed them under the authority of the beasts. This continued all the way to the Roman Empire. Where God's people was scattered around the world. In Jerusalem in 1854, an American missionary, James Barclay, was in Jerusalem where he had heard rumors that there was an underground cave near the Damascus Gate. He went for a walk by the northern wall with his dog, and there the dog was the first one that found its way into the cave. He could see him disappearing, and he could hear the barking from inside. An eager Barclay, along with his 2 sons, returned at night to explore the cave. They were stunned by the large underground quarry so long hidden. In 1873, a French archaeologist named Charles Clermont-Ganneau followed in Berkeley's footsteps and went and explored the cave underneath the northern wall. He then discovered a carving of a cherub in a small niche in the cave. The cherub's appearance led researchers to think this cave might have a history going all the way back to King Solomon's time and the First Temple period. During Solomon's era, cherub carvings and statues was tied to the temple, and even the ark had 2 cherubs on each side of it. This specific cherub carving also seemed similar to the Assyrian style that was so popular in Judea during the First Temple period. This seemed to show the cave would have existed the time when the ark disappeared. In Europe, while the Ottomans for a long time was in conflict with European countries, things turned different as the political climate changed in the 19th century. An alliance between France, United Kingdom, Sardinia, and the Ottoman Empire emerged as they fought Russia in the Crimean War, also known as the Eastern War. This was also tied to Jerusalem, where Christian rights in the Ottoman-controlled territory was discussed. Catholics and Orthodox Christians was in a dispute over holy places. Unlike the Catholic Church and the French revolutionaries, the Ottoman Empire had for a long time allowed diversity of faith and freedom of religion in their areas, and many Christians had benefited from this during the late Middle Ages. But now the Ottoman Empire was weakening and relied on allies. One of the men who fought on the side with the Ottomans in the Crimean battle was Charles George Gordon, who later received the Crimea Medal for his service in this war. His career also took him to China, Egypt, and Sudan. But while he had time off, he went to Palestine in 1882. Well aware of the crucifixion site that the Orthodox and the Catholics clung to, built over an ancient Roman temple for the goddess Aphrodite, his attention was drawn to a mount a little north of the city wall that had a skull shape in its southern cliff. After some research, he was convinced this had to be the skull hill mentioned in the Bible, the real Golgotha where Christ was crucified. A tomb was located in the garden in the mount, later known as the Garden Tomb. Gordon started excavating, but King Leopold II gave him an unexpected assignment. This assignment was interrupted when the British required that he proceeded immediately to the Sudan. He was sent to the Sudan conflict, and in December 1883 they were withdrawing from Sudan. In 1884 he was killed in a battle of Khartoum. But while he had been in Jerusalem, something had happened to him that he didn't fully explain. But he wrote in a letter to a friend a shocking statement. Here at Skull Hill, close to the slaughterhouse of Jerusalem, was Titus 1-2. The Roman eagle took the heart of Zion by throat, for close was the branch. Jeremiah wrote lamentation in the cave. The Ark of the Covenant is there. He also claimed the missing showbread was there. Golgotha on hill was Jeremiah's grotto. This hill is outside gates near city where many roads pass. From long time back, the slaughterhouse of city has been there. It is north of the city. Showbread table is in it. He also said about the ark, I think it will be brought out again at the second coming. Had Gordon received a revelation? He had started an excavation but never been able to finish, so how would he know the ark and the table of showbread was there? His letter was stored away and forgotten. While Gordon was in Jerusalem rediscovering the Golgotha Hill, another colleague, General Sir Charles Warren, was sent to Sinai in 1882 to find out what happened to Edward Henry Palmer's expedition there. Edward had previously been engaged in the survey of Sinai and explored the desert by foot, making friends among the Bedouins. And so he had been sent back to use his influence over the Arabs of the LT Desert, preventing the Arab sheikhs from joining the Egyptian rebels and to secure the Suez Canal from interference. When Charles Warren came, he found Palmer and his team murdered. Warren had earlier been recruited by the Palestine Exploration Fund to explore the biblical land. He made several rediscoveries while in Jerusalem. He also conducted the first major excavations on the Temple Mount. Furthermore, he discovered an ancient water shaft that was later named Warren's Shaft, and several tunnels underneath the Temple Mount. But in the end, his health forced him to return to England. One of his books, published in 1876, was called Underground Jerusalem. The cave, the tunnels, the cherub, the Mount of the Crucifixion, and the tomb did in time all become tourist attractions. So these four men had rediscovered important sites that confirmed the history of Jerusalem. But had it really all been a part of the plan of the Creator, and were there still work yet to be done? Almost 100 years were to pass, as if God had paused the events that were happening. They were all so very close to the most sacred object on earth. Back in the USA was a man named Ronald Wyatt that worked at a hospital as a nurse, but his real passion was the Bible. In 1977, he went to East Turkey to take a look at a boat-shaped object that had been photographed there and had been featured in a magazine he had read. He was eager to find anything convincing people that there was a God and that they needed to turn to Him. Could the boat-shaped object be the actual Ark of Noah? His work led him to the Sinai Peninsula. It had nearly been 100 years since Edward Henry Palmer had walked there and was murdered. But times were changing. Ron was looking into the possibility that the Israelites crossed the Red Sea at the east side of the peninsula. This area had been occupied by the Israelis under the Six-Day War and was easily accessible. He found an old washed-up column that later was erected at the site by the Israelis, and he discovered several things that convinced him that the place could be where the Israelites crossed whilst having the Egyptian army racing after them. On his first trip to Noah's Ark and then the Red Sea, Ron brought his two sons with him to help him in his work. Ending up with a sunburn, they went back to Jerusalem to wait for their flight back home. There Ron visited the hill that Gordon once had pointed to as the real biblical Golgotha. Whilst walking along its cliff face, his hand suddenly went up and pointed to an old place containing some debris and trash, and his mouth said, "There is Jeremiah's grotto, and the Ark of the Covenant is in there."
to help me understand why the Ark of the Covenant might possibly be in that place. I was impressed to read the history of the conquest of Jerusalem by Nebuchadnezzar, the Babylonian king at that time. And in this 2 Kings chapter 25, and the last part of that chapter, it says that Nebuchadnezzar built forts against the city round about. That, in modern language, is a siege wall. Now, this meant that nobody could take anything out of the city or bring anything in the city. So the Ark of the Covenant had to be hidden in the city, under the city, or inside the siege wall.
During his research, he later also discovered the cherubim that had been found in the gigantic cave opposite Gordon's Golgotha, and had wondered if it could have been a mark protecting the way to the Ark of the Covenant. Was the huge cave a key to finding the lost Ark of the Covenant?